Right now on Full Custom Garage, Master Metalman Ian Roussel takes on the wild world of dune buggies.
This buggy's the real deal. It's a 60s survivor. I got a couple ideas that are really gonna make this thing unique.
But Ian's client isn't so sure.
We're on a time frame. Her birthday's coming up soon.
Got plans for this thing. I think he's gonna be stoked, and I think it's gonna work out really good.
As the build progresses, Ian brings in some heavy artillery to help the cause.
What do you think, Inspector? I got a dune buggy and a forklift and a dream. What more do you need? My friend Don, his wife Patty's birthday is coming up. He wants to get her something really cool. Her family has a long history with dune buggies, so he's thinking about putting together one for her.
It's going to be a total surprise for her. Growing up, her dad had a Myers Manx when they first came out, and my wife had a lot of good memories with that dune buggy out at Pismo and some of the desert areas with that.
Don is a car fanatic. His wife is a little more conservative. She's always wondering what he's doing over here. He's got 6 million cars. I think that this dune buggy might seal the deal. It might win her over to our side.
It's just going to be epitome of driving around in something cool, you know, especially done by Ian, because he's so creative.
I recently went to this dune buggy show just to see what's going on in the scene, and it's happening. This type of car has been built for decades. It started out with simple tube frame and advanced into this fiberglass body. At the car show, you see all kinds, and people just dig them. The early dune buggies are super desirable. They're still around, but they're harder to get. What you're seeing a lot of is reproduction stuff with really high-tech performance goods. The cool factor in this type of car is that it's super unique. They're about having a good time, and everybody does it their own way. The Myers Manx is kind of the standard. It has the reputation of being the coolest, most sought-after classic fiberglass buggy. Yeah, the fellow across the way said that this was the original, the real deal Manx. I guess this one sits on an original VW floor pan that's shortened. And just looking around it, you can see a lot of the parts are all VW Bug. Seeing all these dune buggies got me charged up. I'm ready to get this thing going. Don claims to have an old fiberglass buggy and a chassis back in one of his shops. He's got like 5 buildings, huge, all full of cars. He said just kind of look around. I guess there's a lot of stuff in here. He's not sure where it is. There's got to be 1 million cars here, and it's been sitting for decades. This car could be anywhere. Don's got stuff piled on top of stuff.
Ian wanders around the boneyard here looking at this and scratching his head all the time. And I asked him, what are you thinking about? He goes, the next project. So we have lots of stuff here to work with.
The whole game plan here is search and destroy. It's gonna be a lot of digging, fighting a lot of cobwebs, but if he says it's here, I bet it is. He's got a pretty good memory.
There's stuff that can be hot rods out there, they could be gassers, they could be lead sleds. There's a variety of cars that I have here.
There's just so much stuff here. Maybe I'm not gonna build the fiberglass buggy. He's got a bunch of tube frame rails. He's got some Jeeps. There's all kinds of stuff. If I don't find this buggy, it's definitely gonna be something in these buildings. Now this is slick. Oh man. This Sterling is kind of a funky car. It's probably why it's sitting back here in the shop. They have a look, but it's not the look I need. Everybody's got their taste in vehicles. You look at Don's collection, he's got Mustangs, muscle cars, bitchin' trucks. I pull out the junky old dune buggy from the back corner. This is what I'm looking for. Perfect. It's pretty freaking rough, but these bodies weigh like 150 pounds. This is perfect. He's got a chassis here. It looks like it's 68 or 70. It's all here. All the brakes are here, emergency brake, steering, suspension, transmission. This must have been somebody's buggy project that they never got to. This is perfect. This buggy's the real deal. It's a 60s survivor. I don't know where it came from. Don's wife, all growing up, her family vacations were dune buggies at the dunes. It could be her father's, mother's, brother's, cousin's, uncles. There was a lot of dune buggies going on in this family, and this thing's still here, untouched for decades.
That old dune buggy body was something that my father-in-law had dug up years ago out in the desert from a guy that his son had crashed it. So the front end has pretty much been busted off of it, the gel coat shot, and it is in really rough condition. It really needed to be cut up and thrown in the trash can. It was that bad.
It's like a Halloween costume. I love it. See, this is super light. This is perfect. Done. Let's drive it. The only thing I can see for me as a down point is the body is thrashed. It seems like the nose was either broken off or cut off. There's a really bad patch job across the whole front of the car. The car was segmented at some point in its life. Don was really skeptical at first. This car was literally discarded in the back of the shop. It was on its way to the trash bin.
This is probably the biggest piece of junk on the property. It really is, with no exaggeration.
It's a freaking dune buggy. They're harder and harder to find. This is great. It's an original, old school dune buggy. I got plans for this thing. I think he's gonna be stoked, and I think it's gonna work out really good. Probably gonna make a roll cage around the front windshield area. So it'll have like 2 hoops that come up, some kind of center bar. The big question mark in this is the rotten fiberglass body. It's kind of out of my league, but I know a guy who could do the thing. I really like to do everything myself, but I don't mind another guy getting itchy on my behalf. Fiberglass is a really terrible material to work with. It's one of the few exceptions I'll make. Smiley's work includes every material you can think of. Metal, plastic. I'm going to him because he's a fiberglass master, and that's what I need.
We do a lot of fiberglass work, mold making of all sorts, all shapes and sizes. We realize designs for designers. We build exhibits for museums and for galleries and for film and theater. Yeah, here you go. Hey, just in case you break your leg.
Perfect.
Hey, break a leg.
Wow, that's awesome.
But we focus a lot on the sculptural aspects of artworks.
I've seen this guy do all kinds of fiberglass work, creating from molds, just hand-laying stuff. Cars really aren't his bag, but this is a fiberglass body, and I know this guy's a whiz.
Ian came in with a very specific problem that needed a very specific answer. Well, we glassed it all back together. Whoever glassed that beforehand had no idea what they were doing. His problem was his car. It was poorly refabricated, it was poorly altered, and it needed some retrofit. It's pretty straightforward fiberglass repair. However, it was pretty spectacular how big the screw-up was on the previous fabricators. Part.
It looked like they cut the whole nose off, right?
I think they cut the whole nose off and then glued it back together with some kind of combination of chicken wire and bubble gum.
Right.
We just basically cut out the old section and re-glassed everything the way it should have been. But I can show you if we flip it over, maybe that's a good place to start.
Yeah, because I remember it was barely hanging on there. That's why I wanted to attach it, right.
So, it got really thick in some places, but I'll tell you why. So basically this whole section had some kind of chicken wire in it, and it had no cloth whatsoever in it. The cloth is what obviously gives it strength, but it was just solid resin, which is basically like holding it together with a piece of like glass or something.
Well, when I picked it up, it was just chunking out those big plastic shapes, so I knew something was wrong. Yeah.
It's nice and strong.
Sure, that's what I was looking for.
So basically there's an area about 6 inches wide all the way down that went across.
Walking in, looking at the car right away, I knew he nailed it. It sits level on the floor. It was all crooked before. The thing's got globs of fiberglass on it, which is what I needed. I need the thing strong and ready to go.
It should be straight now. It all sits on the floor now,
Yeah,
way
because that was
it
the thing
supposed
too.
to.
The whole thing was like, was really crooked.
It was put on like
right.
that.
It's like somebody had it set up on a freaking crate on one side and then glassed it together. I was really hoping that this thing might be sanded and actually a nice glossy paint job on it, but Smiley's super busy. What he did was what I asked him. He got the thing back in action. Structurally, it's there. I gotta take it, sand it down, Bondo it, and get it ready for paint. Well, that's the thing, man. I think I could do all the finished body work. It was just this structure that I was clueless. I wanted to be sure it was done right.
He works pretty much exactly like an artist in the studio works. He has an idea, and he musters the resources that he needs to make it happen. And he's got a number of projects going at the same time. But he works pretty much as if a painter would be working in the studio. He's got everything there. I don't think he really even works with assistants much. He certainly doesn't work on a kind of a manufacturing kind of capacity. He's definitely hand building everything with hand tools in a studio situation. It's not a factory. That's unique craftsmanship, that's unique artistry. And I mean, because he's designing stuff completely on his own, I would not put those in any other different category than like fine art. The fact it's got wheels and motors, that doesn't make any difference at all. I think he's making art. I don't think he'll admit it.
I brought the body back to Don's. I put it on the chassis, and I want him to check it out. I got a couple good ideas, and I think he'll go for it. This is the car that was all the way in the back there, and I think it's got potential. It looks rough, but it ain't that rough. What I'm gonna have to do is shorten the chassis. This is a stock Bug floor pan. It was laying in the back there too, but you can see how the tires are out of place.
With the body sitting on the pan, the pan hasn't been shortened yet. It looks a little odd. It's still looking a little rough around the edges, but I have a lot of faith in Ian on this project. Well, this would be great. This would be a little go-around deal for the wife around the yard here.
It's a pretty unique body. That's why I picked it.
It's gonna be cool. To see this old girl come back to life is gonna be really, really something. Seeing it a rolling project now looks a lot better than seeing where it was before. And it's starting to come along. It's still rough, but there's hope at the end of the tunnel here.
Don's got a body and a chassis. I got a VW engine and a few other parts. I think this thing can come together quick. Right on, man. Well, I'm gonna wheel it out of here and get to it.
Okay.
After I left Don's, I gave this car a good coat of primer. It's pretty much ready for fabrication. I got it back here in my shop, and it's time to start the fun part. The stock VW Bug is 15 inches longer than this fiberglass body, so the first step is to cut this thing in half. For a lot of people, cutting a car in half would be a real trial. I've done this so many times, it's like a 2-hour process. I'm gonna cut this chassis in half, shorten to 15 inches, and get on with it. The whole mode of how I'm putting this thing together is to work through it as quickly as possible. I'm gonna get the structure in place and then put whatever linkages I need in later. Shortening this chassis isn't a big deal for me, but I'm really making it mine. It's finally, I'm doing some work on it. It's been just conceptual up to this point, so it's cool because I'm starting to make some decisions. Inside the VW pan, there's a whole bunch of stuff. You have cables that control the heater, you have a throttle cable, you have a clutch cable, you have emergency brake cables, you have a shifter rod, and a brake hose, the brake lines. When I put the engine in, I'm gonna put all these tubes back in the chassis, so I'm not even concerned with it at this point. Deal. You see, there's really nothing to it. It's pretty straight ahead. So I'm making all the cuts just a little bit short of where they should be. The idea being I'll slip this thing together and slowly make cuts until it fits within 1/16 of an inch so I can weld it nice. push the chassis back together, shorten the wheelbase, it looks great. I'm gonna weld it up and put the body on. It's the first time with the proper wheelbase. I knew that this body was built for a VW chassis, but this is a later model than the body was. These were for 60s Beetles that had a swing axle. This is probably a 1970 or so. So I really wanted to put the body on once the chassis was shortened and be sure it fit. I never knew if it would fit until now. All my calculations are correct. Put the body back on the chassis, it looks great. I'm stoked. Now it's down to just getting the Dune Buggy specific parts put together. I wasn't even looking for a dog. I don't even like dogs. This guy showed up next door, won my heart. Hellhound. You weren't relieved from your guard. It was a movie about some vampires back when I was a teenager. And the Hellhound, you know, is the most vicious beast ever. And the whole idea with having a shop dog is he's the guard. You leave, he's on duty. I don't know if it's gonna work out. Think you can have a snack and then just mosey on out on your own accord? It doesn't seem to be very ferocious. If I walk away, I come back, he's asleep, he's eating. It's not a very vicious animal. Thank you. Thank you. Ready to yelp. All right, so it just looks like it's missing a top. It won't have a top, but I'm gonna make a roll cage. The look of all the Dune Buggies is the roll cage. Some of them had a single hoop, that was really early stuff. I wanna make mine a little more updated. It'll be safer, so I'm still making it with that classic Dune Buggy look, just better and stronger. So I'm using this 1.5 inch round tube. It's a 1/8 wall. It's good for a roll cage like this. Full race would be 1 5/8 inches, but 1.5 inch for a light car like this is perfect. Roll bars are pretty much standard. Race cars, off-road cars, you name it. Safety is the name of the game. The weight of this car and the strength of the tube is an ideal match. This thing can roll over, no problem. The whole idea with a roll cage is you just want room to live. You know, if something goes wrong, you want the passenger and the driver protected. The roll cage is the silhouette. It's the big part of the proportion of the car. I just want to make sure that it looks right. This hoop fits the car perfectly. It's definitely too tall. I designed it that way so I can adjust it. It's really just about making the second hoop and then putting the crossbars in. It's all about how I fit in the car. Don has got piles and piles of stuff. I found these 2 cool seats in one of his shops, and they fit the bill. When I'm setting up a car, sit in it, it's all about how I fit. If the seat fits me, it's gonna fit almost everybody. Yeah, that windshield height's perfect. So the back hoop will be just above my head, and I'll have 2 tubes going forward. So, same deal as this. I'm gonna make 1 more hoop, cut 4 bars to cross over the center and go back and attach it to the car body. You can see these bodies are made to have this exact style roll cage. See how it fits in perfect down the corner? It's like when they did the glass, they designed it to have a roll cage in there. So you see it fits right in. This is good for me. I mean, there's plenty of leg room. You know, by shortening the car, you think, oh, we're gonna make it unusable, but remember, this Bug was a 4-seater, as small as it is, so I'm actually sitting where the front seats should be, just a little bit further back. Everything looks good. I just need to make the cross members on the roll cage, and it's a done deal. So, worst case, this is the height. Should all hell break loose. plenty of room. That's perfect. That's the height. The next step is to trim the lower sides of the windshield tubes and commit to this height. You can see the tube comes straight through, and I'll actually want to angle this windshield back a bit also. And that ain't happening because of the tire. So I'm gonna cut this off, and I'm gonna have to reattach with some kind of a different plate. I'm gonna leave these clamps on there. That fits better now. So it's really all about the rake on this windshield. See, pulling it back to there looks pretty good. The whole thing with this is usability. It's gonna put some structure back in it because this fiberglass is pretty beat up, but this design is really so you can get in and out really easy. You know, you got some monkey bars to hold on to. So that's the deal. You know, when you're going around the dunes and you need something to hold on to, you got it. And then to get out, you got a handle. And it looks cool. Ever since I started this project, I've been thinking about the engine. Searching around at Don's, as usual, he's got so much stuff. I find an electric motor for a forklift. Just in a pile of parts, you know, there's this electric motor, there's a bunch of switches, speed controllers, just electric stuff. It just got me thinking. I mean, an electric Dune Buggy, nobody's got that.
That thing has been around before I've been married, and I've been married 35 years, so that thing is from the 60s, so it's gotta be 50 years old, and I don't even know if it works. I know nothing about it other than it's sitting out back.
I've wanted a Dune Buggy forever, so building this, I'm kind of living vicariously through Don's project. I built an electric car before, and it's just a cool idea. I'd really like to make this happen.
Yeah, I'm a little concerned as old as this electric forklift is, if the parts will work. And then we're on a time frame. Her birthday's coming up soon, and I would love to have it ready for her birthday for that big surprise.
A typical story for me is just a bunch of stuff that doesn't belong together. I got a Dune Buggy and a forklift and a dream. What more do you need? I think electric car is happening. Today I got all the stuff set up to make this thing motorized. Body's on, the chassis is ready. It's time to make this thing roll. Scabbed a bunch of parts off of an electric forklift. I got a 24-volt DC motor, some kind of a speed controller, a bunch of solenoids, and a bunch of cable. This is pretty much all the stuff it takes to make this car move. It's just a matter of getting it together. When I took this whole thing apart, I didn't think to test the motor because I was so excited that it was free. I just grabbed it and ran. So it turns out the motor was seized. It wouldn't spin at all. I hooked up a battery and it was completely locked up. It's really a bummer because I got this motor for free, expecting to just go forward and immediately hit a wall. I have to put power to it and see what it's gonna do. It's a pretty sad state. This motor sounds more like a siren or something. It's really grinding, it's whining. Electric motors are typically silent, and this one sounds like something terrible. It'll be the only Dune Buggy with a real, authentic engine sound. The crazy thing is this motor is operating. I put 6 volts and then 12 volts to it. It spins free. It's just making a weird noise. Full speed ahead with this program. I don't care what it sounds like as long as it works. This motor has to plug in to that shaft. This shaft is what spins the gearbox. That's basically what we gotta do is stick that thing onto that thing. The big challenge in this motor swap is the coupler. I'm having to create some kind of a cockamamie idea that mates this forklift motor to the Volkswagen transaxle. The coupler's gotta be strong and it's gotta be balanced. I found a shaft that matches the VW transaxle. I got a collar that matches that diameter shaft, and I'm gonna weld it together and run it. I just transferred these holes to this square frame. So this face goes up against the transaxle. The same bolt pattern as the Volkswagen engine, and they're centered so that the two drive shaft things are lined up. I put together some really hairy contraptions. This thing is pretty dialed in. It's loose, but it's gonna work. It seems like it's gonna work. That fits the Volkswagen transaxle. What do you think about that? It's gotta work. I'm going off the standard VW gearbox, so it has a neutral, which is perfect. I don't have to worry about the tires spinning. So it's kind of a safety mode. I'm just gonna hook up the motor and run it, see what happens with no stress on it. The big question mark is, how does this thing spin? So being in neutral and running it 6 volt and then 12 volt, it's cool. It's not perfectly balanced, but it's damn good. The cool thing about this dog is the first couple days he was sketchy, but he's becoming shop dog. It seems like the dirtier he gets, the mellower he gets. So I'm just not gonna wash him. It's such a bummer. It seems like anything that can go wrong will. This electric motor spins the reverse of what a Volkswagen engine does. That means we have 4 reverse gears and 1 forward gear. It's in reverse now, which will make it go forward. It's something I need to figure out. Yeah, there it is. I'm not gonna get caught up in the fact that reverse is forward. Sometimes things go sideways for me. It's still gonna move. First gear is here, and then second gear and then with 4 batteries, you'll have 4 gears. Should go 1,000 miles an hour. This proves that it works. There's 3 things I gotta do. Mount the motor, put a steering wheel in, and add some kind of brakes. It's pretty straight up. I cut through one of the brake lines, so if I hook that up, the brake should work. I'll hook up the steering wheel, and it's ready to drive. What do you think, Inspector? Think it's all right? He's schooling you? Today is all about getting the car ready for a test drive. Bolting on the body, finalizing the steering column, bleeding the brakes, and just making sure it's ready for the road. I got 2 batteries in the passenger seat, a 6 volt and a 12 volt. What it's gonna do is give me the opportunity to choose a low gear and a high gear. I'm not that familiar with electricity, you know? I've heard rumors about hitting people with a stick if there's an electric issue, so I'm gonna put my welding glove on and just try to isolate myself from the circuit. I am literally stabbing the terminal with a big old cable, manually. Right-hand drive, ting. So we got a low gear, right? 6 volts. Then quick to 12. And we're off. You know, I really wasn't that nervous. I'm ready to go out at any time, you know. This Dune Buggy would be a great way to pass. I'm always ready for the worst, but I stuck the cable on the battery and it just worked. The wild thing is when it was no load on the motor, it was humming. It was making a terrible noise, but once there's the load on it, it smooths out. I think it's just gonna get better and better. This is like a breakthrough. It was all a huge question mark. I've been really stressed about it because the torque that electric motors make will rip stuff apart, and I just didn't want to break. So having this thing operate smoothly is a tremendous relief. It's kind of anticlimactic because it works. I mean, it would have been a really great thing if it blew up or flipped over, but it just cruises. This thing rocks out. It works great. I'm really happy with it. The motor, perfect. I think it's gonna last a long time. It would have blown up right away if it was messed up. It just needed to wear back in. Brakes work, steering works. It's Dune Buggy time. This test is a complete success. What I have to do is figure out a way to switch the voltage properly. I got a bunch of solenoids, I'm gonna try that out. So what it's gonna do is, it'll be a mechanical switching mechanism, choosing the voltage instead of my hand. It's just safer. It's all about the wiring at this point. I gotta talk with my friend Todd. He knows a little bit more about circuits, etc. Bunch of electrical whiz that I have no concept about.
What I need to know is what you want as far as control.
I want as little control as possible with as much power as possible.
Simple.
Those are the parameters.
Perspectives. So that's where we use the big ones.
This was actually the whole control box from the electric forklift. What this box did was controlled a series of hydraulic motors, but we're repurposing everything to control one single motor instead of a series of smaller ones.
I want to take this relay, I want to take this relay, I want to take that relay, and I'm gonna write a schematic on it, and we'll just wire it and
whatever
check
fittings.
it for functionality. Yeah.
Todd had a pretty good idea on how to make a speed selector for this, so he just drew out a schematic and I followed his drawing.
Cool little project, definitely. And I think I can make it happen.
While Todd's getting all the technical stuff out of the way, I know enough to get these wires straightened out. Every time a wire passes through the body, it has to have an insulator on it, so I'm just drilling a series of holes and fittings in the firewall. I gotta build a battery rack, set up a solenoid rack, and after that, it's just screwing wires together. I'm gonna show off all the electronics. Instead of seeing a gasoline engine, you're gonna see this whole Frankenstein contraption under the hood. I'm gonna put in some flashing lights, disco ball. It's gonna be awesome. This part of the process is the final step. As long as we get this speed controller mounted, it's onto the paintwork. Nothing in this build has been that big of a challenge except for the electronic components. That's the big task here in the whole project.
You making progress?
Yeah, I did exactly what you said on your sketch. I couldn't get 4 6-volt batteries, so I mixed it up. I got a golf cart battery, a truck battery, a boat battery, and a forklift battery. So it's kind of like Tetris in here, but it works.
Well, it looks like everything's hooked up properly. And then this is your switch circuit here?
I couldn't find a slide switch or a rotary. So you know, with the 6-volt, it was really just a bump to get it rolling.
Okay.
So it's push button, so it'll go. 6 will just get you rolling, and then that's cruising speed. The second gear is 12 volts, third gear is 24 volts, and because I don't know if that 36 is gonna fly, I just put it on a momentary. If it seems like it's gonna work, we could just put a switch there. So let's see if it works.
Yeah, just run it. That is rad, man. I'm telling you what. I didn't think it'd go that quick. And he's still got 4 gears.
It's a little spooky when right out of the box it works, you know? Speed controllers operated fine, there's power, there's speed. We're ready to rock.
See that? It worked.
That is brilliant.
Dude!
Totally works.
Right on. Awesome.
Yeah. Now that this car is running, I looked at it driving around a little bit. It's kind of bland. The body's a cool shape, but it's just one big blank thing. No trim work, nothing. It's just a shape. I want to do some kind of graphic thing. It's got to be an exciting car. It's a fun car, so I got to come up with something cool. Graphics are really time-consuming. 3M gave us a whole ton of tape, so I'm going to use every bit of it. I'm going to tape off the whole body of this car and come up with a cool graphic job. I got a silver car, I want red stripes, so I'm going to tape it off everywhere so that the only part that gets the paint is where I want the red. The wild thing about this is I have so many lines going on, I'm not going to know what it looks like until it's painted. This is just an idea. The whole deal is it's got to be symmetrical, and it's a million pieces of tape on this, so they got to seam together flawlessly, because if tape doesn't line up, the paint doesn't look right, doesn't look pro. I don't have a lot of experience with paint, so I really don't know what this is going to look like until it's finished. Really, once the clear coat is on, that's the finished result, and a painter that's done this knows where he's going. I'm just going. Eastwood gave us a whole urethane kit. It's got this red base coat. You just thin it out. It has no catalyst. It's super easy to use. You just mix it and spray it. Worked out really good. I didn't talk to Don about any graphics. He saw the car primered and loved it, so I hope when I show it to him, it flies. It's kind of dim where I was spraying it, so I rolled this car out in the sun to check it out, and it's pretty much the moment of truth. Did I make it? I started peeling it back, and the glitter was just popping. The sunlight was hitting that, it looked great. And then Dawn shows up.
I don't know, Ian. Red's not one of her favorite colors. Oh, but that glitter sure looks nice.
Even though red might not be your favorite color, come on. Every gal is a fiend for glitter.
Shit, love the glitter.
Right? Look at that metal flake.
Oh, wow. That's really starting to come alive now. That looks really cool.
When Don saw this thing in the sunlight, he was sold right there. He thought Patty, even though red wasn't her favorite color, he thinks she's gonna dig it. Not only do you have glittering lightning bolts, but you got a double red line there.
That looks really cool.
I'm stoked that the paint work happened. It was a little touch and go, but it worked out perfect. So once this base coat sets up a little, I'll clear coat it, and then really it's just like put on the headlights, put in the interior, and she's ready to roll. I think 3 days is good.
Yeah, when he pulled the tape off and it was done, and the clear coat was the next step, I knew it was going to come alive then. It looks absolutely great. Wonderful, wonderful.
Be just in time for her birthday, man.
Be perfect.
Hope
Be a
she
great
likes it.
surprise. Oh, she's going to love it.
All right.
Okay, I'm going back to work.
I'll be here. This isn't a really technical paint job, but it's way further than where I was going originally. And that's the thing, once you get excited about something, just keep going with it. Finally got the car all dialed in. Road tested it for a while, seats are in, carpet's laid, it's time to show it to her. Don and I are gonna reveal the Dune Buggy, and I really hope Patty likes it.
She knows we've been working on something. She doesn't know what we've been working on. So I think this is gonna be a total thrill for her. She's been around the Dune Buggy stuff all her life. Her dad used to take her out, cruise in the desert many, many, many times. And she's such a tomboy. This is gonna work out perfect for her.
Don't walk me into something.
And here is your birthday present.
Oh, I like the red. Wow, this is, oh, and you carpeted it. This is totally cool.
No gas, all electric.
Oh, wow.
You can hot rod this around all you want around the compound here.
That's so neat. And it has the hubs just like the race car.
Just like Dad's race car.
That's awesome. This is gonna be so much fun.
Hot damn, she loved it. She really, really loved it.
It's way cool. I like that it's sparkly, and I like the red. The pinstripes and everything on it is really cool, draws a lot of attention. It's way cool, I like it.
Yeah, we actually found this back in the shop way back at the end. It was buried under a bunch of stuff, and we restored the whole thing.
That is so cool.
The thing that Patty responded to most was all the reused parts. We're on the same wavelength in that she's not looking to spend a bunch of money. She doesn't want a super fancy car. So the fact that we used all the stuff that was around her family's compound really turned her on.
All of those parts are repurposed from something else. I mean, I don't think he spent hardly a dime on it except for maybe some headlights and a couple other things. I mean, we're into this thing for next to nothing.
So the whole deal is it drives just like a car with the brake and steering, but there's no gas pedal. You just have this switch. So if it's in neutral, the motor just turns on.
Really?
And that's it. That's all you do, is on and off. And there's different speeds. So you don't have to shift. That's your shifter.
I think my favorite thing that Ian did with the car is going electric with it. I think that is just way cool. And it shows how talented he is.
I was kind of nervous because it's electric, so it's different. It's completely different. So I wanted to drive it, but I was also nervous about damaging it or doing something. But it's really cool to drive. It's a lot of fun. I love it!
The cool factor about this whole build was that Patty's family was into Dune Buggies. I mean, for years, like old school when the thing first happened. So to restore this original survivor and give it back to her, it's like it came full circle.
As far back as I can remember, my dad, he always raced cars, and he always had Dune Buggies. We always went to Pismo, and he had a Myers Manx, and it was a lot of fun. And just looking at this makes me remember how much fun I had with my dad and with my sisters. And I'm not a girly girl, I'm a total tomboy, so this is totally perfect.
Don was totally stoked. His big issue was this was a gift to Patty. He didn't want to end up in the doghouse, so me pulling this off for Don was really like an ace in the hole.
Yeah, Ian did such a wonderful job on that, and my wife is so happy. I don't think we could have got her a better birthday gift than this. It was absolutely fantastic.